What is up, everyone? I hope you're all good. So today is something a little bit different, as you can possibly see behind me. This actually has nothing to do with what's going to be in the video. What's in the video is that way. So we have done a small nature pond, we have done the small goldfish pond, we've then done, the bucket ponds. Now we're on to this. So if you watch the channel regularly, you'll have seen my pond. Now my pond is obviously full of like 10 ton of stone. It's a big, well, it was a mammoth task, to be honest, to build that. This one, I would say this is the easy way of building ponds. It's certainly the most common way of building ponds in the UK. Now these ponds are great if you're just starting out, so it's a good place to start because it's easy, it's simple, the shape's made for you, there's no messing around with folding liners, you know, doing all those creases. This is a really simple way of getting started in ponds. But what we're going to be doing today, instead of building a completely new pond, we're actually going to be renovating a very, very old pond. And here it is. So this pond is old, very, very old. And as you can see, it's accumulated a lot of things around it over the years. But what we're going to do is we're going to rip this one out and we're going to start afresh with this completely new pond. Now I've got all the electricals and stuff on its way, so I'll show you that a little bit later on in the video. We've got the pump, we've got the filter, we've got probably some lights going in here as well. I think that'll look nice. But I've got some cool plans to make this essentially new, fresh, a new style fish pond instead of probably what's been here for the last 40 years. Now I have to say a big thank you to Blagdon. Obviously they've supplied us the pond and they're going to be supplying us with the electricals to get this done. And I also have to say thank you to Raymond, who has essentially lent us his garden to do this. He gets a new pond out of it though. But we better crack on because, in all honesty, we've probably got 2 hours before the rain moves in. So today's job is just to clear all the muck around it. Now obviously I haven't really looked in this pond, but I can see this is an old filter, so I know that that's in the bottom. We have got a Brussels boy as well, which is doing his business into the pond, and we've got these sinks as well. The sinks I quite like, you know, that's quite a sort of antique-y classical vibe. I quite like those, so maybe they'll get reused, but a lot of the other stuff just needs to be moved out the way so we've got space to work with. An otter. We also have a helper today in the way of my niece Sophie, so big shout out to her. She didn't really want to be mic'd up, but that's fine, she's here to help. Oh! What? There's a slow worm. Okay. Do you want to hold him? Oh. Where am I putting him? Oh dear. That was heavier than I anticipated. Some of those rocks were quite, well, not rocks, they were concrete. Next step is going to be to remove all these old, horrible patio slabs. Now, the funny thing is, looking at this pond, when I was working in the shop, I remember a lot of people coming in and being like, oh, I've bought a house and I've got this pond and it's full of weed and it's full of grossness, and, you know, this is how a lot of people end up, like, getting a pond. They move into a new home and it's this. And I suppose the good thing is this will show you exactly how to renovate one as well as build one. So, yeah, we better get on because I've just felt a few spots of rain. We're going to move all these slabs, I think, now. We're not going to drain it today because otherwise that'll be a problem. The rain's coming in now. I can feel it. Right, let's get on. There we go. So that is the pond, fully cleared. Not cleared because obviously there's stuff still in the bottom, but this one, so like I say, this is a 750 litre pond, should fit nicely like that. And now we're not going to do like the whole concrete patio slabs around the outside. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to do maybe a couple of patio slabs so that you can stand on it and have a look in, but most of it is going to be like flower beds and like, I don't know, flowers, alpines, things that's going to attract bugs and bees and beasties and everything like that. Make it proper alive. So just behind you is the French doors where Raymond sits and like looks out into the garden. So this is a perfect place for a pond. Loads of people make the mistake of putting the pond down in like the back corner of the garden where it's already wet and it's already a bit damp. It's the worst place. You spend a lot of time, a lot of effort on a pond, and really it should be a main feature of the garden. You know, my pond's right outside my back door. I can literally see it from my dining room table. So really, as much as you can put it wherever you want to, you can make a pond work wherever you want to. Personally, with the amount of time and effort you spend on a pond, it needs to be somewhere as a main focal point. It's a big statement piece in a garden. So really having it somewhere that you can view it from inside and out is perfect, especially in England where we get rain and we want to sit inside and watch our little frogs and our fish swimming around from the comfort of our house. So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to go, because I've got these plans for this water feature, probably where I am now. Yeah, I reckon around here, maybe over there. But anyway, I'm going to go to the garden centre and have a look around and just see if I can find the thing that I've got in my mind. Yeah, anyway, let's leave here. I'm sure he won't mind. It's a bit muddy, but it'll be fine. So we're back on day 2. Luckily, me and Sophie went to the garden centre yesterday and we found these pots. Now this is going to be the start of our water feature, which won't be yet because obviously we've got to get the new pond in, but we'll be putting these sort of, I don't know, something along those lines with a water spout in. You'll see it towards the end of the video. But for now, we've got a pond vac this, drain all the water out, save all the wildlife and get everything essentially clean. There's a lot of plant life in there and there's a few beetles and bugs that we're going to make sure we save. Now, we haven't got Sophie today, but we have got James, who is my other, well, he's my nephew, isn't he? Not my cousin. I keep wanting to call you cousins because of Quinn. But anyway, James is going to be doing, what are you doing to my pond vac with all the piping?
What am I meant to be doing?
No, that's fine. Dragging it, it's fine. So yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, this is a pond vac. So it is pretty much works the same as a vacuum at home. You've just got your inlet on the front. I suppose a vacuum at home doesn't have the pipe on the back. But essentially this fills up with water. And when that fills up with water, the water purges out through that pipe down into wherever you want it, whether it's a drain or a flower bed. So this is just going to make our life really easy for cleaning this pond. The other good thing with one of these is it drains it out quite slowly. So we're going to be able to find any beasts, bugs, frogs, newts, whatever we find in there, we're going to be able to catch them out before the water is too low and before they get too stressed out. So we have a vaguely clean pond now that we're ready to remove. We found a load of bricks as well, which I'm assuming plants were put on when there was plants in here. But we've also got this bucket, and this is one of the buckets. I've moved a load to the other end of the garden in the shade. This is where we're keeping a load of our bugs and beasties that we found. So we found a load of damselfly larvae, which I can't find now. There's one. So I can't really tell which species it is. Someone a little bit more clued up would probably know, but yeah, it's like a damselfly or dragonfly larvae. Got a load of water boatmen and back swimmers, and then a load of little black beetles as well. The other thing I've done is I've saved this wheelbarrow full of this plant. Now, I don't necessarily want the plant because this is essentially a horrible oxygenating plant that sort of is quite invasive and quite nasty, really. Now, I've put a load of water in the bottom of it, so it is full of water, and hopefully any beasts, bugs, snails, anything will drop through into the water and we can sort through that once they've settled. But now, on to the pond removal. Well, that was way easier than I thought to get this pond out, to be honest. It actually just lifted out, which is quite nice. Now, there's a bit of sand in the bottom, but we'll just mix that all into the soil and get it all dug out. Next, we've got to get our liner over and actually mark out the shape. Now, there's no real easy way of doing this because, well, you're sort of guessing how much you have to dig. You can obviously have a rough guess, but I've got to dig down a foot and then half a foot, and there's different shapes and different shelves to dig in. So it's just going to be marking out the area that the pond's going to be in, roughly dig it, save all the soil, and then we can backfill with sand and soil afterwards to, well, backfill and support the edges. So that's the main shape. So you can see we've got a little bit of variation in the old shape to the new shape. So we're going to have to backfill a little bit round this side, but then round this side, we're going to have to dig a lot more out to allow us to put this sort of shelf. You can see the shelf there. So yeah, we're gonna have to allow a lot of space to get that shelf down into the soil. So hopefully we'll uplift a load of soil and be able to sort of, well, make it fit and maybe have a little bit of excess soil to help us with the water feature that we're eventually gonna build, probably on this back edge. So all I'm gonna do is go around the edge and create where we need to dig out to, and then we can start digging. Now with the shape lined out, we need to do the hard bit of digging. So we're going to keep all the soil and place it on the black bit of tarp, where it's actually an old pond liner, but we're going to use all the soil because if there's any excess, we obviously want to backfill the edges with it. And we also need to make sure that we've got enough soil if we want to build a berm for that water feature. When digging out the shape for a preformed pond, it is always better to go slightly larger than you need, because backfilling is way easier than having to lift the pond in and out and trying to cut the shape perfectly. So we've got the outer ring working well now. James is doing a grand job at digging out all the soil, getting a bit of it on the grass, which I will have words with him about in a minute. But we have dug the outer ring now perfectly. We've just got to go deeper in the middle for the sort of, well, the bottom edge of the pond. Once we've done that, hopefully we can get the pond in. That was quite a lot of digging. It was actually a lot deeper than the old pond, which was a bit of a surprise, but that's fine. We are in. Now I've got to get it level tomorrow because obviously you don't want it full of water down here and not so much water up there, and I can already see that this end needs to come up a little bit, probably, I hope. Anyway, we'll find that out tomorrow because we have got a family party, haven't we?
Yeah.
A family party to go to, and we've overrun here a little bit. So, but, well, yeah. We've made a lot of progress today. It's only been 2 hours, 3 hours?
3 hours, 2 hours.
Yeah, so it's not been too long. So tomorrow all we've got to get done is backfill around the outside edge. That should then obviously stabilise all the shape of the pond, because you've got to make sure these ponds are packed in, because otherwise once the water's in, it starts to push out a little bit. So we'll pack all the way around the edge with the excess soil that we've got behind us, and then we can start making the pond look pretty. Well, and then it's all the equipment. So it's the filter, the pump, and all of that. So we're on day 2, day 3 tomorrow, but it's only been 2 hours a day so far. I think we've spent 5 hours so far, so not doing too bad. Did you want to say anything before we go?
No, I don't have anything to say.
James doesn't have anything to say, so we'll see you tomorrow. We are back on what is day 3 of this pond build, but over those 3 days, I think we've only spent roughly about 5 hours. So it's not actually too bad. You could have done what we've done here in, well, under 1 day hard work, easily, no problems at all. Now, I have got to level this today. I've got no helpers today, so I'm on my own, poor Matt. But I got to level this off today because it's still a little bit, yeah, of an angle. Probably needs to come up there because it is key that you get this point level, because what will happen is obviously if this point is low and that point is high, all that's going to happen is the water's going to be higher down here, lower up there, and you're going to end up with an uneven pond, and it might buckle the liner and just might cause you problems. So the more level you can get it, the better at this point. Now we're going to have to go back and backfill all the edges. Now the reason I say it's vaguely level at the moment is because as you're backfilling and making sure all the shelves are supported and make sure there's soil under each one, you're going to be moving the soil, you're going to be slightly moving the pond, you're going to have to twist it. So all throughout this process of backfilling around the edge, I've got to keep checking the levels because it could go out, and like I said, then it means the water's going to be deep in one end, shallow in the other. You're going to have liner on show. It's just not going to look nice. But now is the laborious task of going around the edge and backfilling and making sure all the bottom and all the sides of the pond is supported properly. So we've got to a point of backfilling now where I need some resistance pushing out on the liner, as well as obviously pushing in, because if I keep packing soil around the outside, the liner is just going to slowly close up and it's going to bend inwards. So I'm going to get this starting to fill with water. It's going to take a bit of time, but I'm going to have some lunch, put a bit more soil around the edge. You might even see me start to move some of the rocks in that I'm going to place around the edge, but we'll see how we get on with the filling and yeah, and my lunch. So we are nearly full. Only a few inches to go, but I'm not going to fill it all the way to the top today because, well, I've still got to put the pump and the filter and, well, I've still got these. So this is the plan. These are going to go sort of here, and I'm going to make them into a water feature, which you'll see. Oh, my shoelace. Ah, well, you'll see that towards the end of the video. And it's going to start looking a bit more like a pond. I've probably just wiped mud all over my face, but oh well. One thing I thought I would mention, to be fair, is if you're dealing with like soft soil, a new soil, maybe a new pond build, sometimes you are worth waiting for maybe a week or so because the weight of the water pushes down on the soil and the pond almost like settles out. In theory, because there was a pond here before, there shouldn't be too much settling to do downwards. There might be a little bit of settling outwards, obviously, as it sort of beds into this soil. But again, it shouldn't be a great deal. We've compacted it quite well all around the edges. And yeah, it shouldn't move too much. But it is certainly something to be aware of, that if you're maybe laying a patio or, you know, these rocks aren't too bad because we can literally just lift them up, move them, pack a bit more soil in, compact the soil around the pond, and it will be fine again. But if you were laying something like a patio around it, it's probably worth leaving the pond for a week or two to let it bed in and settle out, and then laying the patio or maybe cementing some rocks around the edges, because you don't want to do it all and then for it to move and cause you all sorts of grief later on. Anyway, I think I'm talking now just because I don't want to move the half a ton of stone that needs to be moved, but I think I've got to get on with it because the day's getting on, I'm getting hungry, and yeah, I want to get this finished. So let's crack on with moving those rocks. So there we go, we are nearly there, and as you might be able to see on the slate, the rain is starting to come, so I'm going to call it a day today. We've spent another 3-4 hours on it today, so it's not been too bad again. We've got a lot done. Well, the pond is full, the pond is in, the surround is vaguely around it. Now I know it might look a little bit grey and a little bit like, I don't know, concrete jungle, but it isn't concrete, it's real slate. So, but I know it looks a little bit grey at the moment, but we've got a lot of planting to go in. Obviously these planters are going to be part of a water feature. Now I'm questioning whether I should have one water feature coming out over there and one here, but that's something that I'll work out overnight when I'm having a rest and I can think about it and what I'm going to do. But we've got tons of planting to come in here tomorrow, and I say tons, but we're going to cover obviously all those shelves in planting inside the pond, probably something to go in the deep water, maybe an oxygenator or something like that, and then loads and loads of little plug plants to go around the outside just to cover up the remaining bits of liner, things like alpines, so they'll look really good, they'll flower, they'll attract bees and bugs. Anyway, I'm still talking, I'm going to crack on, I'm going to go home. I might just give these rocks a quick wash off because I want to see what they look like when they're clean, and yeah, and then I'll bring you back tomorrow, so day 4 of this build, but only, what, 8 hours? Yeah, I think about 8 hours we've taken, so yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. We are back for day 1, 2, 3, 4 of this build. But again, we've not actually done full days, we've only done a few hours each day, so it's not been actually too bad. Today we're going to be doing our filtration system, our pump, our electrics. What else have I got to go in there? Maybe some lighting as well. I think some lighting would look cool to uplight these two, especially as I'm going to build these into this water feature. The pond's looking good, it's not really moved, all the rocks are still really stable, so I'm really happy with how it's going like that. So today, really, we're just going to be looking at all of the electrics that's going to make this pond crystal clear, easy to maintain, well, and yeah, a proper fish pond. So there are a couple of different types of pond filtration. Well, I suppose, namely 3 different types of filtration on the market. You get your in-pond filtration, which is what I was running in my mum and dad's little garden pond. That just sits in the bottom, big box with a pump on the back, and it just filters underneath the water. You've then got things like what they call a gravity fed or a gravity box system, which is essentially like a square or rectangular box. It's got to sit on the side of the pond, and the outlet of it has got to drop back into the water. So that has to always be higher than the water's surface. The one that we're going for on this pond is a pressurized system. So this is a clean pond machine from Blagdon. Now this is one of the easiest to clean filters on the market at the moment. We used to sell loads of them in the shop, and they've essentially, well, I'll go a bit more into detail when I get it out of the box. Now the cool thing is the Blagdon Clean Pond machine is the only pressurized, no foam, clean hands filter on the market that I know about. There are a few other features that I will discuss about it, but really we're looking at a box at the moment and that's boring, so let's get it out of the box and I can show you exactly how it all works. Now, as I was saying, you can bury these filters up to the sort of neck bit. You want this clip free of the soil, but you can bury them down to that just so that this top bit's showing then. It makes it a little bit easier to disguise. Now, we do have to put our handle on. Now that is our salad spinning handle, as I would call it in the shop when I was selling these, and what that does is you spin that around to mix up all of the media that's down inside. Now the media is what they call their chi media. Now chi media is essentially plastic with ridges on, so it interlocks and breaks down all the waste. It catches all your muck, it gives a good home for the beneficial bacteria to live on, and yeah, it's just a good all-round media. So there's nothing that you need to do about taking this apart, none of that horrible squeezing out of old foams. It is literally all inside and only needs cleaning via this handle. Now as you can see, we've got hose tails to go on the front of this filter. Now that's just where your water goes into here, and then we've got another one that goes on to the outlet of the filter. So that's going to be in and out of the pond. Now this other outlet that we've got here is actually where the waste goes. So when you want to clean this filter, you undo this one, you screw a hose tail onto there, and then you can run a piece of piping down the garden when you want to clean it. So you turn this handle round that way and then start your salad spinning motion, breaking up all the waste, and it pumps all the muck to waste down your garden onto your flower bed and means you don't have to get your hands dirty when cleaning it. Now there are a couple of little other features on this pond, and I say little actually, one of them's quite big, but you have got this tube here which you can see with this green sort of end cap on it. Now that is your UV clarifier, so that is an ultraviolet tube, and when it turns on it kills off algae. It will help kill off things like parasites and stuff as well, but yeah, ultimately designed to help you keep that pond clear. So I won't undo it because you've got to undo the screws to replace it. You will need to replace those bulbs normally once a year, normally at the start of spring, because then you get full effective power for the big part of the summer when you've got a lot of sunlight. Some people will replace them more often, maybe every 6 months, but yeah, that one is in there to help us keep the algae down. Now these filters are designed to work with Blagdon's clean pond pods. Now the good thing with these is they are designed specifically to fit inside of this chamber. You just drop in the amount that you need to treat the literage, and there's loads of different active ingredients in them, from things that help reduce algae, there's things that reduce sludge, there's things that help you keep the filters clean, so there'll be certain bacteria and stuff that are going to break down the filter media. They're essentially an all-round, well, dishwasher pod for this filter. With the piping to power these filters, obviously you've got loads of different sizes that you can get hold of depending on your needs. We've gone for some 25mm, which is 1 inch essentially hosing, which I believe is this second one here. Let's get it out and just check, because with these hose tails, you cut them down to the size that you want. So yeah, that is going to be that second one. Obviously you don't want to go through and cut them and then realise that you've cut too far and have to go buy new piping or bigger piping. So yeah, we're going to cut the ends of these off to get rid of them, and then we can start getting our piping installed. So now we've got the hose tails cut down, we can chuck our piping on there. Now I'm going to be running obviously Jubilee clips on this to clamp it down over there. You don't really want anything outside of the pond to not have a Jubilee clip on there, because if you get a drip, it's surprising how quickly one drip every couple of seconds can result in you losing a good majority of your water out of your pond over the course of a couple of hours. Now this piece of piping that we've put on is on the in, so you can see there's an arrow pointing into the filter here and there's one pointing out of the filter here. So this one is ending up in the pond attached to the pump. So for the minute, this roll of hose can just go through the middle of these pots back into the pond. Now with the water features I've got planned, we have got lots and lots of different fittings, and there's some elbows that are actually off camera to use. Now I'm going to build a little bit of a contraption so that, well, we can throw the tap at the piece of slate. No, we can use this tap to bypass the water through the water features. So if you don't want that trickling noise that the water features are going to be running, you can come behind here, turn this off or on, and then you can change where the water is going. I'm also going to be using a couple of T-pieces because they're just going to be able to divert the water to the different water features and, yeah, where I want the water essentially. If you've got loads of different fittings and different connections, obviously you've got to push, where's the end of my piping? You've got to push all this piping onto these fittings. Now, every time you do that, you are obviously cutting the piping and creating a point that could leak. So it's well worth having some aquarium-safe glue or some pond silicone that you can just wrap around and make sure everything's glued up and everything isn't going to leak. So that's mostly mocked up at the back now, all the pipe work's in place. It does all need fixing together properly, the Jubilee's tightening up, but until we're fully set up and we've got the pump in, I don't want to like fully set anything in stone over there. You can see the 2 outlets now that I've drilled through those planters, so hopefully that's going to be our like water drop back into the pond and are going to give us that nice sound of water that we're all looking for in our garden. So next up we've got to install the pump. Now obviously this pipe here is a little bit long, we're not going to need that much pipe, but we are going to be installing it onto an Amphibious IQ pump. Now this is the pump that runs my waterfall at home, that big rocky stream that you've seen in previous videos. This is one of those pumps. Now I've got the bigger one, this is the slightly smaller one, but they are one of the most energy efficient pumps on the market. Now the good thing is with them, I'll show you, is they've got a digital controller. Now the difference in this digital controller to a lot of other ones is it controls the wattage that is supplied to the pump and not just the power of the pump or the flow rate of the pump, I suppose you would say. It actually reduces the wattage. So this one goes from 2,250 litres up to 4,500 litres, and if you turn it right down to the 2,000, it's going to be on like next to no watts. I think it's like 15 watts, and if you go all the way up to 4.5, it's on 25 watts. So they are super energy efficient. But anyway, let's get it out of the box and let's show you how to install it on this pipework. So as with the filter, there are many sizes of this pump, this being the smallest, but they do go up quite large, the same as the filter. Now you've got the same sort of hose tail that you get with the filter, just screws onto the top. Your main pump, which is like that, big nice beefy cage and then a decent pump on the inside. And then what makes you able to control it is your controller. Now obviously once this is all plugged in, it's got a digital display, you've got a plus and minus to speed up and slow down the flow, and then you've got a pause button that you can obviously pause the pump if you're, you know, wanting to do some maintenance on something or you don't want the noise for a minute, you can pause it. So yeah, decent pumps. So the hose tail and the pump on this one is exactly the same, where you've got multiple sizes to use depending on what hosing you want to use. So we're using the second one up. So we'll get rid of that first. Now the piping obviously doesn't need to be as long as we've got it, but we do want a bit of excess so that we can obviously maintain the pump. Obviously if you cut it too tight and you can't actually get the pump out of your pond and put it onto the side, it's just a nightmare to clean. So a little bit of excess is good, and we're going to stick it right down in underneath where this rock is essentially. That's going to mean that it's going to pull water from this far end of the pond, push it up to that end and recirculate it. If I was to position it just underneath the water feature, you will get an amount of circulation up here, but it won't pull water through the entire pond. So you do want to bear that in mind when you're looking at locating your pump, because you do want to pull it all the way through your pond, or at least the good majority of it. Now obviously the piping is sat on the surface at the moment, but once that's full of water and once we're getting into the last stages, we can actually root it and make sure it's all tidy and hidden away as best we can. But for the minute, it's just a work in progress. We'll leave it there and it's easily accessible if I want to change anything. So next up we need to power all of this stuff. Now we are very lucky in the fact you might be able to see we've got conduit coming into the pond from where the pond was powered previously, and we've got all outdoor electrics ready to go. Now when I say ready to go, the old unit was a bit broken and a bit, yeah, not great. So I've got a brand new power safe box. Now the good thing with these is you just got your power in on this side, and then you can have up to 5 outlets for your pond. So pumps, lights, filters, air pumps, whatever you want, you can run them off of these. They are really easy to install. The main thing you want to make sure is obviously you've already got outdoor electrics that have been installed by a professional. This is a bit like an add-on, so just have a look in your area to see what the rules and regulations are in installing your own electricals. But this will be a very easy install today for this pond. So as you've probably already seen on the box, it's a fairly simple unit. I have used these units for years, but yeah, these buttons just press down. The lights light green when it's on, they light red when it's not on, and so on and so on. And oh, and black if the fuse is gone, because each one of these is individually fused inside the box. You've got your power in here, which you do your earth, neutral and live, and then each one of these blue blocks here is where you put your power for your pump, your filter, whatever. Like I say, check in your area what you are allowed and not allowed to do with electrics, because some places you do have to be careful. But we have got a fully installed outdoor electrics, so I can literally wire this in, get my electrician friend to check it, and we'll be good to go. So we are wired in. Obviously we need to tidy all this up, but I've got some extra bits that I'm going to install, namely some lights to light up the water feature we're going to build. But we can actually turn the pump on now and see how good it is. Now I've wired in the pump here, so all we need to do is, in theory, press this button and our water feature should work. So as you can see, I've got this one positioned lower than this one, and that's why this one's got less flow than this one. But what I'll do is I'll end up getting a little tap to pop on here, so that then we can clamp the water down and we can get them both running at the same speed. But I'll have to go to the shop to do that. So I think we'll call that it for today. We've got everything running, the filter's on, the electric's on. Tomorrow, well, we can bring the plants and we can actually get this looking like a proper garden pond. Wildlife, loads of plants, loads of colour. Yeah, I think that's going to be good.